guys, welcome back to the Trainer Feed. We have a great episode today with our good friend Nick. How's everyone doing?
We good? Pretty good. Shit weather, but morals high. You know how it is.
Let's hope the internet stays intact.
For real.
So, all right. So let's bring in our guest, Nick.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
Nick
Here he
Yuan.
is.
What's up?
What? You're in your DJ studio. He's a producer, right? Making his beats.
I want to fit with the big headphone gang, you know what I mean?
Oh shit. How you doing, man? You good?
I'm good. Good to see all you guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. We know it's probably got a lot going on right now, a lot on your plate, so we appreciate you making time to come and join us. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Angel, you want to shoot us off?
Sure. First and foremost, like, how have you been doing? I know I saw you in the middle, kind of before the gyms opened up, but how have you been doing since the pandemic started?
It was a hell of a year to become a personal trainer, I'll tell you that much. But I've been good. You know, I think at the end of the day, I'm really grateful that everyone in my family is still healthy and we're all still working and getting after it.
Cool. And I just wanted to kind of talk to everybody about your background in the fitness industry, but maybe you should kind of start. So just feel free to let us know what your background in the fitness industry is, as well as with martial arts and what that tie-in's like.
Sure. So actually training has a pretty special place in my heart. Growing up, I was always in a lot of like athletic activities, but I was like kind of a late bloomer. I was young for my grades, so I was always like, last get picked on teams, like not very coordinated. But around the time I got into high school, I actually had a coach that really changed my life. I started joining the swim team kind of just as a last swim. I had a family friend that had done it, so I was like, not terrible. I did try it out. And just like, I don't know, he must have seen potential in like my work ethic and the way that I kind of applied myself to the sport. He really pushed me, and he was always like kind of pushing this principle of like, mind over matter. And if you're swimming like a 2-lap race, you better not breathe. You better breathe in the finish line when you finish everything off and you get all your work. And that's kind of like a principle of like I've taken to everything that I do. I realized that the more I applied myself as a swimmer, the more I would see myself like excelling as a student. The same year that I got on the varsity team, became captain, I also did over 100 hours of community service and won the Pro Friends Service Award for my school. And I also was able to get into the D1 school. So I started seeing this like idea of like the more I apply myself physically, the more I can see changes in myself mentally. So yeah, that's what I always.
Wait, you went to D1 for swimming?
Yeah.
How did I not know this?
I mean, it was a short.
You swim?
Yeah, I had a tear my Achilles tendon pretty early my freshman year, so I actually never ended up seeing too far into that career. But I just recently started playing rugby, so not been in my competitive sports days.
Cool,
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's kind of always what I want to apply in terms of my training is just like changes not physically but also mentally, because I think there's a huge amount of carryover and how it can affect yourself, not just inside the gym but outside the gym as well.
Yeah. So with that said, like, what are some of the similarities between, I specifically was thinking more like martial arts and fitness, but you being an athlete, like, how does that, like, what are some of the like similarities between that and like kind of being the instructor or being like the personal trainer?
I think it's cool to see it on both sides of the spectrum. I think training was something that I didn't necessarily actually see myself in until the last like 2 years or so, but I had a lot of success in teaching. I don't know if you guys know this. I was also teaching a little bit when I spent some time in Hong Kong. I used to teach English, so I think it's a good idea to see like take someone from any ability level and kind of just figure out the best way to kind of communicate to them, even if it's like the same thing for example, like squat, deadlift, presses, all things that I believe that all athletes should be able to do, but everyone's gonna have their own kind of unique learning style, and especially if you're like a gifted athlete, so it's like it's kind of hard to communicate with those kinds of people, if you know what I mean, like because they're kind of natural doing these things. So I think as a trainer and as a coach, like it's been interesting to see the different ways you can kind of break down very similar movements, and I would say like especially with like working with some geriatric clients who haven't really been active their entire lives and understanding how to break down those kinds of things as well.
Yeah, I think everyone could kind of speak to how eye-opening it was to train people and work with populations that aren't like your age range. And then you start to see how squats look different, how difficult or easy it can be to get up from a grounded position, asymmetries down the line, right? And it almost wakes us up to like what we're doing currently, and then also what we can do to kind of slow down age, if you will. But yeah, I was just thinking about that when you spoke about geriatric clients. It's like, working at a luxury club where you got a lot of people coming in, most of the time you work with geriatric populations, or at least like you touch it, right? But there's definitely, depending on where you're at, a high population that you got to tap into. And it's kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, I think it's really important too. Oh, sorry, I mean, cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I just understand how to break it down to someone who's like not necessarily athletically inclined. I think like those are honestly the most rewarding clients. Because I think especially like I was very lucky that when I started training kind of young, around like 13, I had people to kind of show me the ropes like a little bit. But I think like like starting off the gym at an older age is like extremely intimidating. You don't really know what you're doing. You kind of like see people lifting these like massive amounts of weights, and you're like, oh, I can never do that. But I think like another principle of the idea of like I learned from like swimming and training too. It's like I never considered myself to be like that athletic of a person until like I kind of started doing and putting myself through those motions. And I think it's really encouraging to like at any given point you're able to kind of build up from where they are, even at any age, like 70, 60 years old, you're still able to like squat and put over weights and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then it also speaking to that point, it helps you figure out what the potential is if you've done it yourself and if you've overcome obstacles yourself, right? So for example, if you're 70, 60 years old, you might not, be the fastest or the strongest man or woman alive, but you can definitely break some PRs with, your age range or your age group, right? Like, and your own personal best. So like, it's definitely something to kind of like be mindful about, and definitely something you can always learn from. I wanted to switch a little bit. It's weird because like all the questions that I have almost reflect the martial arts background. Meanwhile,
we can talk about that
you
too.
got like
there's
your swimming background.
Yeah.
So you did, what martial arts style did you practice?
Primarily I practice Taekwondo and Muay Thai.
And what kind of is the difference for everybody who's listening and doesn't know? What's the difference between Taekwondo and Muay Thai? And then also like, what was your rank? Like, what degree belt did you get?
So actually I never got my second time, but I'm a first degree black belt. I got that around the time I was 9. I guess like the best way to compare these two different styles, like Muay Thai is a little more like brute force, not saying brute force because there's a lot of technique, but the idea of like the difference between the two kicks, like Taekwondo kick is more like a whip, so there's a little bit of like a fastness on the end, whereas like a Muay Thai kick is come out more like a baseball bat because we get all the way through the body.
Cool.
Kill someone.
Was that?
Trying to kill someone with your Muay Thai.
Whereas like Taekwondo, you can like
You're like
fully disrespect somebody.
Yeah,
like,
you're like
kick
slapping
them
them.
in your face with your toe, right, or something like that. Versus Muay Thai, it's like, no, I'm not gonna hit you with my toe. I'm just gonna hit you with my leg.
Yeah, Taekwondo, there's also a lot more like what they call like forms. So you kind of go through sequences of like doing different kinds of techniques. It's a little more of, I guess, like an exhibition sport in terms of like you show like your ability to do certain things, whereas like Muay Thai is definitely more tailored around like fighting specifically. Got
you. And how significant is self-defense to you, and how does it differ with the community you're serving in? So whether it's like NYC or New Jersey, like how significant is self-defense to you? Like on the list of priorities of things a human being should be able to do, where is self-defense?
I definitely think it's really important. That's actually funny you mentioned that, because the reason why fighting is such a big part of my family is when my dad first moved to the States, he moved when he was about like 13. He started working as a paper messenger, and he actually got mugged one of the first few times he was going on his route. So like that's why he started practicing martial arts. I mean, there's like more foundations of fighting within the lineage of my family, but that's how it started in my immediate family. So like growing up, it's always been like a very important thing in our family, like know how to protect yourself and know how to like defend the people you care about. Some of my earliest memories are actually like sparring. Well, not really sparring, obviously, with my uncles of the age like 4 or 5 years old. Them teaching me how to do arm bars, teach me how to throw a punch, teach me how to throw a kick, those kinds of things.
Your uncle as an Ed.
Yeah, Ed and his twin brother, also named Ed.
Shout out, yo, Ed.
And so
wherever you're at,
on a motorcycle somewhere. Well, maybe not in this weather. This weather's pretty crap. So how does that differ from like the people around you? Like, do you notice that other people kind of have a similar ideology when it comes to self-defense, or do you feel like it's kind of got a ways to go?
I think it's definitely got ways to go. I guess like for me growing up, especially like moving into the gym that we all worked in, it's just like I didn't realize, I guess, like how much I knew above the average person, you know, because it's always kind of been like a thing that I've done within my family. But I definitely think it's extremely important to like kind of know how you're doing in a situation, like in case you ever get like kind of where you're in a situation someone tries to take anything from you or like tries to hurt people that you care about. Especially I've also worked in the bar and restaurant industry, and like I kind of had to step up as a bouncer at certain times. Like, you know, customers get rowdy or they try to start fights, things like that. And I think it's like it's not something that I'm like actively like trying to be the aggressor in. I think that's also an important principle of martial arts. Like use it as a means of self-defense. And only when those situations come in, I think there's also a mentality amongst a lot of people I've trained. They're like, okay, I'm going to learn this thing. I'm going to start like beating people up left and right, like a Jackie Chan movie. You know what I mean? But for me, it's more about like when things start happening, then you know how to handle yourself. You know how to protect people that you care about when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of my friends started doing like way back in the day, they were doing when Muay Thai first came on the map, kind of like well, I wouldn't say like first, but like when it started becoming more popular, like UFC started coming out, and then everybody's just like, oh, Muay Thai, Muay Thai. And then one of my buddies was just like, this was in high school because I was doing karate and he was doing Muay Thai, and he went to like a kickboxing gym. I won't like say the name, but he kind of got a little bit aggressive with everybody around him. And I was telling him, I was like, there's also like that art style to it where it's like, you got to like be mindful of what you're doing, be mindful of like what you know and how it can impact somebody's life. Right. And it's not to kind of like flaunt it around and make fighting the first decision, because it should be the last decision, because ultimately, if you're going to that, the result could be death, right? Either you or the other person. But my buddy was just like getting crazy, and he was like, nah, I would kick this dude in the head, kick this dude in the head. And I kind of spoke to him about like what, like I asked him, like, do you have like, after you throw all these kicks in the gym and the dojo where you're at, like, do you kind of like meditate or anything, like cool down a bit? He's like, nah, you just walk out and you take the train and you go home. I was like, that shit is crazy. Right. Did you notice that at all? Like between Muay Thai and Taekwondo? Like I remember karate was very like, you know, now you have to like clean the floor, hands and knees and all that stuff. And then you have to like, you know, think about everything before you dip. But is that something different, or have you heard these stories before?
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that a lot. I think similar within fighting and also within the gym, you kind of like can understand people's personalities a little better when you see them training, you know, like, and I think it's like important thing about like fighting in general, it's like a tool you utilize. And I think like especially with like studying martial arts, my uncle's giving me a bigger appreciation for this. When you break things down, there's like a lot of mindfulness that goes into it, and things that you kind of like think about, understanding how to kind of leverage your body in certain ways. But I've definitely seen people who are aggressors and people who are kind of like, you actually like wouldn't really want to mess with them, but they're oftentimes like the most passive people, you know what I mean? I think that's an important thing to remember, especially some of these bigger guys. Like, there's always going to be someone bigger than you. There's always going to be someone stronger than you. There's always going to be someone that can, you know, take advantage of that situation.
True that. And you're probably the biggest dude in the room from a lot of different perspectives. So it's kind of refreshing to hear that, because I know people could be young, rowdy, and just be like, nah, I'm invincible. But nobody is. I wanted to get into jiu-jitsu before this whole thing went down. I think me and Ed were speaking about it. It was going to be me, Ed, and Tommy. And we were going to go up to that spot on 72nd and Columbus as a group and try to get like a discount or something like that. But
yeah, I was actually thinking about joining her there too.
Yeah, that was going to be dope. I mean, but now it's kind of
wrong time to get into that kind of
I'd pay some serious money. I'd pay some serious money to see Angel in a cage. Like
Listen,
Angel
man, I still got my gi. I still got my gi from way back in the day.
Your gi?
Yeah.
What is that?
Oh my god!
You don't know about the gi? Come on, man.
Yo,
clearly not.
Yo, kick him out. Kick him out. We're done.
No gi in the face ass. No,
it's their uniform. It's the uniform. That's what they.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what it's called. Oh, okay. I didn't know that's what they called it.
I thought it was a robe.
Yeah, I thought it was a dressing gown here. I know you mentioned your uncle, and like for our listeners, like we met your uncle first, and then we kind of saw you come in the last year or so and model a lot of your training, or at least your mindset, very similar to your uncle. But I want to ask, how has it been having your uncle in the industry?
Simply like the interesting experience. I think it's kind of funny because I think we talk about this a lot, but like me and Michael weren't as close before we started working together. We just kind of see each other and out at family gatherings and stuff. And it's really just more by coincidence that we ended up training together and being interested in similar things. So I think it's kind of cool to see that there's like this thing that even though we're kind of in the sense like very different fundamentally, there's this thing that kind of brings us together. And I think that's the same for fitness across the board, because like I guess in a way like we're all kind of different as individuals, but we're all brought together through like fitness and training.
Because it can't, having certain family members, for some people those environments don't always mesh. So the fact that you guys have been able, I was like, oh man, like I don't know if I could work on my uncle, but my uncles also have they're very different mindsets, right? And they're very different personalities and so on. But like you guys seem to do it pretty well. And like you just mentioned, there was maybe not initially the bond that you might have had, but in like you also said with just speaking of Angel just now, how he tells you a lot about someone's personality when you see them train. And if you've probably seen that, witnessed that, that probably has a whole, I mean, the one thing I always take my hat off to your uncle for is how far away he comes in. And I'm sure for you, it's a bit of a distance to come into the club as well. And he'd be there at 6 a.m. and he's like, oh, well, I have X amount of clients and I'll be here till 9 p.m. And I was like, wow, I mean, that'd be a lot if you lived 20 minutes, 30 minutes away, but you live over an hour each way. And like, that was something where he was like, he just understood that was just the nature of the business. And he knew what it took to be successful at the club. And I like never heard your uncle complain either. Like he's always very uplifting and very positive. So the fact that you came in, you were able to have him, I think that was and the fact that you're able to get along, right? Like I said, if it hadn't been getting along, but your uncle's so cool. It's so cool that you're able to both be there at the same club. I don't think that's very common, right? Equinox to have like uncle, nephew, like shit running it out. That can't be too common, right? So you guys are the first to do it.
Well, you just fucked it up.
I mean, first that I've heard, at least, yeah, I don't know. It was definitely pretty intimidating at first. I mean, like, Equinox was the first job that I was a trainer at, so I kind of come in, like, my uncle has been there for, I think, like 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah,
I kind of
like
felt like, I felt like, you know, I have to, not in a sense like prove myself, but I just wanted to, just like make sure that it was up to standard and stuff like that, and I wasn't like, you know, being that like slack off family member that's like, oh, like, you know, this guy works so hard, but like, what the fuck is this kid doing over there? Just
right.
Yeah.
No, that's a very valid point. You got to make sure it's all in transition. I did want to ask. So, when you see these hybrids or these boutique gym classes, right? Even though they're not open right now, when you see them, you know, because I took one in downtown that was spinning, resistance band training, and boxing all in one, right? Like the New Yorker, up until before COVID, it's like, give me as much as I want in the hour so that I've got everything under the belt, right? So when you see that stuff, and again, the boxing, I've only been to that. I know there's other companies and other facilities that have like the hybrid of boxing, high intensity. Like, have you been to them? Does it make you think about opening, hopefully one day, your own version of like what you know with what you love doing in training, right? Because not every martial art, right, has a certain way of teaching, but depending on the structure, you might learn it almost identical, but with slight different twists or modifications. Does it make, I guess my question is, does that interest you in developing your own facility, your own boutique gym where you got your hybrid of like the martial arts background you have with some like training experiences?
Yeah, it definitely piques my curiosity. I think the way I think of martial arts in relation to training is similar to some discussions that you and me actually had first when I started about the idea of like expanding your toolbox a lot. I actually didn't picture myself being in the position to teach martial arts. It's kind of something that I kind of just done throughout my life, but definitely working with one-on-one with my uncle. Like, I remember the first time I ever visited, he showed me like 3 kicks in the span of like 10 seconds. And he was, yeah, this is like transverse, sagittal, and frontal. I was like, what? He's like, don't worry, but you'll know that EFTI. But I think it's really important to kind of just like have movement that you're comfortable with and you have a good time doing it. I think like fighting for a lot of people is that. Because I think it's important, like, training can kind of be very monotonous and like repetitive over time. I think like kind of having someone to bring up the routine is very important. So I think a lot of times like boxing or kicking is something that's good, especially like living in the city, you're kind of around a lot of people, you got a lot of pent up aggression. Sometimes you just gotta have a good medium to kind of letting it out, and boxing definitely do that. And I think that's also relevant in my style of training as well. Where, like, we go through like phases of strength training, and then I'm like, okay, like now we can take kind of like the strength that we developed through your entire body and show you how you're able to use it through like these motions and leveraging your body.
Right. Yeah, I can. I mean, now is maybe a difficult time to project when you could open something like that, but I just think having like, I just think the first, I wouldn't say complaint or criticism, but the first area of improvement, let's say a fellow client of mine goes to these facilities, is they say like, I'm not sure about the boxing or the kicking. I'm not sure how correct the form was, right? And because the main emphasis of the class, just based on what I've understood and some of them I've been to, it's just about getting as much as possible in that hour. And it's not like that hour when someone trains of any one of us for, it's all about quality movement. It's all about being safe. It's all about making sure you leave moving and feeling better than when you walked in, right? Whether it's more mobile, whether it's less pain, whatever it is. And it's not to criticize those group fitness classes, but it usually is a very high volume, right? And it's just a very different style of training. So I think if you have someone the likes of yourself that can bring in the martial experience, the training experience, and make it a very safe environment and still get, because I think sometimes the members or clients, sometimes the disappointing factor, or they're at least led to believe that it has to be high intensity for it to be a hard or grueling workout. Right. And that's not the case. And everyone can speak of that, like different rep set ranges, different intensities, different volumes, all amount to different kind of stimuluses on the body, right? It doesn't have to be. So again, I'm not promoting you to do it. I would definitely pump your tires if you were coming out and doing it. But I think that'd be a cool thing that, I mean, even if your uncle puts the hours in, he'll be there, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm actually doing something similar up in the Bronx right now, where some of the people I'm training for my other job, we're doing like a combination like strength training and kickboxing. And that.
Nice.
But I think it's kind of like what you're saying too. I think a problem a lot of times with those group classes is like it's hard to have like quality control, especially like cardio kickboxing. Me and my uncle always have a big laugh about that, because it's like I think there's a certain inherent value in terms of like having fun and moving your body, but in terms of like transferring that to like a real fighting situation, you would not.
Right.
But I think it's important.
It's like you see all those classes at certain gyms. It's like
certain gyms.
No, seriously. You have people that are just it's kind of like back and forth of the same thing. It's kind of like choreographed.
And this is a true story, right? Like someone I played rugby for like 10 years in England.
Here we go.
Oh, that's good. I know that.
Yeah. I grew up in the town of Rugby where the game was invented.
Oh shit.
So where it was invented, I played on the field. I even filmed some stuff for a documentary with the school and how I began and all that good stuff.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I'll have to find it. So this Spanish team of producers came in and filmed like a documentary on how rugby came about. And I was one of the people
famous internationally too.
My dad found it. I've never found it. But anyway, like I had the long slick back hair. Fucking hated it. But anyway, so from there, whatever, not much to do there either. But one of the guys I played rugby with, this guy, his dad was like a somewhat semi-professional boxer. So he had his own gym and the kid was boxing as well. And the kid was like hard as nails, man. Like if someone like talked shit at the game, he was like, a couple of times he'd just like, boom, the guy was like flat on his back. Like, but he was a nice guy. He wasn't like, he didn't use it in a malicious way, right? Like he was stick up for himself. But I heard a story where like it was him and one of the kids and they got jumped by 10 people and he got knocked out, right? And it was really unfortunate, really sad story. But like point was real life situation, 10 of them, 2 of him and his friend. It's not a real life situation. And this guy one-on-one could take out pretty much most people, anyone he came across. But like you said, I'm not training for a real life scenario. So unfortunately, I don't think in boxes they'll put you like 1 against 10 people. I don't believe so.
No.
That's what your cardio game's for.
Maybe that's your new class, right? Like you sign up, you get put against 10 semi-professional boxers, and you see how many rounds.
That's called initiation in Harlem. Okay.
Wait, you did it, David? When did you do it?
Nah,
What?
man.
No, don't worry
That's
about
over
it.
his head.
No,
No.
don't worry about it.
That's up there with the gi.
No, yep, up in the
Nah, that
Jacques-
ain't going on
Jacques
my
is
head.
fine.
Nah,
Damn,
nah.
Jacques.
Nah,
Jacques,
nah,
whew,
nah, nah, nah,
the
nah,
fuck,
nah.
man?
I'll bring it back down and put it in your head.
Hey, yo.
Yo, pause.
Yo, 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 Nick. Question.
Jesus, David.
I did those, Jacques. Question. Okay, they asked you. You were asked the question about training and martial arts. Can you give us how it is that you know, in a very generalized way, or however you want to do it? How do you mix the martial arts and the strength training? Because like what we were talking about with boutique gyms, the whole business model is about volume. You know, again, I think gyms in general, their business model is getting volume, getting the most amount of people they can in gyms. And when that happens, you will sacrifice a little bit of quality. How do you mix martial arts and strength training? Or if you don't, or do you just straight up tell your client, like, okay, I'm not going to have you spar for 30 minutes straight every time we meet and, you know, do a 1 rep max squat right after, you know, like, how is it that you tend to, you know, program it? And Jacques would probably do it because he's like into this weird shit that he likes to like eat moldy bread and stuff. But regardless of that, you know, how do you mix it in, and how do you, you know, communicate that to your clients?
Yeah, I think it's very specific to the client. In terms of a regular strength conditioning program, I wouldn't program it at all. But most times during the equal fit or the initial assessment, you speak with them, you find out like what their interests are and to what extent of both sides. So it's like most times I'll communicate honestly, even with just boxing clients, that it's important to have strength training because like you see most professional fighters have very like kyphotic shoulders because they're always in this position right here.
Yeah.
So you see like Conor McGregor when he stands, he's kind of like this all the time because he's always in that hunch short position. So I kind of tell him it's very important to incorporate both sides. Whereas for I guess like an average strength athlete, I wouldn't tell him to generally box. So I think it's important to understand it in the way it's being utilized, similar to what you guys talk about in terms of boutique gyms. It's really more for like cardiovascular output. But like when I speak with them, I find out like, do you want to fight? Like, do you want to compete? Are you just interested in learning like the basics? Do you want to just do pad work? Is that like, you know, the way to incorporate cardio? Like a lot of times I tell them it's like much better than running on treadmill. You know what I mean? Like treadmill's kind of boring. Like boxing is a very engaging thing. You kind of think about it. And most times they'll realize that like it'll be like 30, 40 minutes and like they'll feel winded, but they won't have thought about whereas like if you're running on treadmill, you go for a long walk on the Stairmaster, it can kind of be like mentally exhausting in a sense, even though you're not really doing too much. You know?
You know, it's so tough. I remember I had a not sparring, but a session with your uncle, and bro, I think 20 minutes passed, and I told him, I said, I need to stop. I thought I was gonna vomit. I thought I was gonna faint.
And the first 10 minutes was Ed just wrapping his hands.
Yeah, you know, and it's
Legit
like
10
shit.
minutes of boxing.
He's like,
done.
all right, you know, all right, kick, all right, 5 kicks. I'm like, okay. And he's like 4. I'm like, okay, 3, and then I'm like, do it again. I'm like, wait, you know. But the thing is, it's tough, right? I mean, trying to get that through someone of saying, hey, you don't have to go and run every single day, especially, you know, depending on the goal, of course, right? It's like if they want to get stronger, you know, maybe you could use martial arts as like a little, you know, conditioning day or something, right?
Exactly. So like most times, if it's someone who has interest in boxing, I'll either have like a day that's solely dedicated towards boxing, or I'll have it like sprinkled in depending on their level of engagement with like pad work and how much they want to learn about it.
Has anybody ever knocked you out by accident?
I haven't punched in the face a few times by accident.
Really?
It's usually I'm holding the pads like this and they just go right through and they're like, oh, sorry, I didn't even aim. I'm like, why? I don't know why I didn't do it.
I can just imagine you going into the assessment room and being like, yo, you want to fight?
That first question was weird,
Yeah.
right? Like he was like,
Like,
so what do you want to do?
fight?
You want to fight? Are you competing? Are you this? Like that first, do you want to fight? The
compete?
pause. And then
They
they're
just
just
came
like,
back from their job in the office and they're like, what? Wait, what?
damn, now this dude's going to beat me up in this little room. I
Yep.
knew it was a setup.
Damn.
Yeah, I also like, sorry, is that?
Sorry, what were we going to say?
Oh, no, I was going to say to your point of exhaustion, I think like because me and my uncle are kind of confined to like an hour worth of time, we want to make sure that our clients like have the most amount of practice within that time frame. Whereas like at most, I can't say for most, but where I trained when I was in Thailand was like, it's like a 2.5 hour long session. So you have like dedicated amount of time where you're solely doing like technique work, and then like where it's a little more faster paced, they put you basically on a timer, very similar if you were in the ring.
Damn.
So for me, you just go back to back to back to back. So as much time you can fit into an hour. I mean, obviously within reason for like the level of fitness for the client, but we just try to get them with as much power as possible, because I think especially within the city, it's kind of hard to find like quality pad. Well, depending on where you look for, it's hard to find quality pad work.
You could reach Nick and his email. It's the quality. Have you ever competed in martial arts competitively? Have you ever, had tournaments or anything like that?
I did Taekwondo when I was a kid, but I haven't done Muay Thai. I'm looking towards in the next year or two to try and compete in Golden Gloves boxing, but it's going to take some time. I'll probably have to drop like 40 pounds, so we'll see how that weighs in with rugby.
Damn.
Yeah,
All
probably won't boil over well with rugby, right? Like you
Yeah.
probably need it's either like one or the other, right?
I think so. So that's kind of what I'm in the process of deciding right now. But I definitely I think it's important to compete in some kind of combat sport, at least like once. I think it's a lot of fun. And it teaches you to think on your toes a lot. I think Mike Tyson has the best quote where it's like everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's another thing that, as someone who like teaches fighting, that like I'm kind of like person to allow with some new clients, like, well, yeah, if you just grab my wrist like this, then I'll do this and that. Well, like, okay, what if someone just walks up and punches you in the face? Like, you wouldn't really know what to do. It's kind of like something you have to like learn.
Stop it.
You have to like learn to like, kind of like react to it. It's like almost in a sense like a mental game of chess, number one, but number two, it's like something you have to ingrain within your training to the point where it just becomes subconscious. And it's something that me and Keith have talked about like too, where it's like if you really get into a fight, it's like most times the second you take the thing is probably the second you're gonna get punched in the face. So it's like you have to be at a stance already where you're like reacting as opposed to like kind of thinking proactively in that situation. That makes sense.
Wow.
Quick question. Do you ever think that there will be an acceptance to people getting punched in the face as training to prepare to get punched in the face?
I've never punched anyone close to the face, so that's sure. But I think
I have a couple people. I have a couple people in mind.
You have like, will it be socially justifiable? Could you say on paper, like this guy is nervous, he doesn't act well under pressure, but we need to get him. He says he wants to be ready to fight. So as his
it's like the worst thing you could be doing mentally to somebody.
Yeah, like I think nothing is will ever equate to like real in the ring experience. Like you can do all the power work that you want, but until you really get in the ring, it's very different. And even like for sparring too, like when I did it for Taekwondo, it's like you spend so much time kicking pads, and sometimes like even like just general sparring for class and stuff like that. But when you go into a competition, it's a completely different mentality. You're scoring like win points, you're scoring for knockout. And those things.
Wait, there's a difference in terms of competition, right? I mean, like there's one where you have the pads, right? Like the helmet, and then there's one that's just like straight up, like no holds barred.
Yeah, for as far as I know, at least for Taekwondo, they always have pads on, but for Muay Thai, it's very like they even have a certain type of fighting where it's like pretty much bare knuckle. Well, it's not really bare knuckle because they wrap your hands up, but they have no gloves on.
Yeah, I've seen the Taekwondo one where you score points on like head kicks and torso and all that stuff. But Muay Thai just looks like wild. The Karate Kid? That's points. That's point based.
They weren't wearing the helmets. Like they weren't wearing the pads.
Is this in Harlem, David, or
this is the movie, Jacques?
The Karate Kid in Harlem.
Hey, shit. Hey, it's a good one.
It's a new spinoff. A new spinoff.
Jacques, have you seen the Karate Kid?
I don't think I have. The closest thing I've seen to the Karate Kid is Ralph Macchio, the guy who plays him, right? He's a big Islanders fan, so I've seen him at Islanders games quite a lot. But that's the closest I've gone to seeing the Karate Kid.
Well, actually, he sees, and you watch hockey, so it's kind of like that where they start fighting.
It's
on the ice rink.
Yeah, well, I don't know if
you don't score points though.
You don't score points, but you do it for morale and to change momentum. So if your guys are getting beat 3-0 and it's first like period of the game and you have no
so it's
rhythm,
accepted for morale.
Back in the day, it was different too. Like Knuckles Down would come out and just knock someone out. They would penalty box 5 minutes.
Yeah. Now, like the rules are, people are like, "Oh, this is okay." Then is it when they say the rules are as soon as someone falls to their knee because you are so vulnerable, someone can just fuck you up.
Yeah.
Or first blood. As soon as someone's bleeding, they break it up. And sometimes they actually really try and break it up a lot. And I've read the minor leagues, like there's one minor league in Canada where they're completely banning fighting at all. So if you fight, like you just get flat out suspensions and making it like an illegal part of the sport. but it's like over in 2 seconds. And honestly, like it's so funny, Nick. I'm sure you've seen it as well. Like it's the way they fight is a very like I can't do it obviously, but there's a technique where it's not just anyone who could do it. And
You got the enforcers.
Yeah, the enforcers. And you have like the team I root for, they have their fourth line are just bruisers. These are just guys that you put on to start off a game. You fucking crunch opposition the first like 10 seconds and you just set the tone. And you know that. And the reason why you play like that as well is to like put doubt on the other player's head. So they think they have less time than they have. They make a mistake. And again, the other thing as well is like when you have these young skill guys coming up, if you have like a guy on their line that's going to protect them so not anyone comes after your special star player, there's things to that. But like I tell you, as a fan, when someone, at least if it's your team fighting, you're like, let's fucking go. Like there's been, and again, especially if your team's like not in the game and they do it, like when my Islanders were in the playoffs, they were down 2-0 in the series, they won game 3. And at the end they had a fight and I was like, let's fucking go. And it's just I don't know.
There wasn't a fight where we went to the game, right? We went to a game. There wasn't a fight. I can't remember who they play. It also depends on who they play. There are certain teams that have certain players who are just like going to fucking come after you. Like there was and I'll go back to the story, but there was one game I played at in Cardiff, Wales, and I will use the expression that my friend used. He goes, they were coming after us as if we raped some of their own. That's what his was, not mine, right? And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much because they were fucking coming. They were hitting hard, coming after us. We never played them before, and they were fucking killing us. And it was mutual. Did you fight, Shaq?
We didn't fight, but it was mutual where like we would dish out the hits as well. And like if someone was like their back up against me against the boards, it's like I am taking this motherfucker out. And what's funny is you said about like you have no plan until you take a punch to the head, right? There wasn't the Mike Tyson's you have no plan.
You get bludgeoned in the nose.
To get bludgeoned, you have no. But I'll tell you, in rugby is the same thing as well. Like I don't know if you've played matches in rugby, but I felt like in rugby, once I got hit early, my game level raised a lot higher because now I was up and I was ready and I was mentally like my adrenaline was a lot higher now that I've taken the hit. And the same with hockey. Once someone like crushed me in the first period, I was so ready to go the rest of the game. And your body's like it's like, I don't want to say foam rolling because that's not a good analogy, but like if you're going to do a movement and you haven't rolled out or stretched, whereas compared to foam rolling, I like to think of it like that. Like if I've taken a hit, I am like my tissues are raring to go, and my intensity matches the game. I say this like I'm a fucking pro. It wasn't even that good.
We got.
This guy like can't even skate. He's like this.
We gotta put Jacques in a fucking.
We need to see that video.
We gotta watch that shit.
Yeah.
The video of what? The
rugby.
Yeah, I gotta find it, man. My dad said he saw it.
How old were you?
I wouldn't have been older than 14. I was probably 12 or 13.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I had hair down to here.
Yeah, little mini Griezmann.
Yeah, but 20 years before Griezmann, but 10 years even.
Damn. All right. Okay. Nick, question. I think we touched on this earlier, but right before training, what were you doing? Like, what was your career, at least at that point, or what did you think your career path was going to take?
It was actually like vastly different than it was right now. In terms of career path, I've always I always knew that I wanted to own my own business and I wanted to be something that helped the world and help the community. So past few years, I've kind of been spending some time with like some family-owned businesses and just understand like some of the back workings and like getting experience from a managerial standpoint and like kind of like, I think the best way I learned at least is like learn by doing. So actually before this, I was manager of a store down in Jersey City. Shout out to Pro Marketplace. And it was kind of weird, like the way that training came into my life because like before I became a trainer, like a bunch of people would come and ask me, like they usually like, they like the way that I was working out, like, I guess like because I'm an approachable person within the gym. So I was always asked tons of questions and I was like, I don't know too much about training. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to do it as a profession, but I actually met this guy. His name is Devin Levique. He's a partner at Performance House. And he was talking to me one day. He was like, yeah, like training is a lot about just like having like a good personality in terms of people that want to work with you. Like, I think that's the biggest kind of bridging step that gets you towards like most of your clients. And I was like, it's not like a bad idea. I definitely kind of I wanted to be involved in something that I was very passionate about, and I was like, felt good kind of putting a lot of like hours towards. Because I think in anything you do, you're gonna have to spend like a lot of time doing it. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of like a given, but especially within training, it's something that like you're able to give and able to have a direct impact in someone's life. And I think that's something very special. It's something I was speaking with Georgina about when I first started, was like this idea like as a nurse, she like was only given like a certain amount of time to your clients, whereas now like as a trainer, she was given like a whole hour to spend time and like have an impact in their life and every day. I think that was something like that really made me want to take the jump. It was like something I was like kind of in a sense like scared to do, but I'm definitely happy I did. I haven't looked back since.
Cool, man. What's your plan coming up now, even with COVID? I mean, you got a lot of shit going on, especially with like, you know, clientele and volume. What do you think your plan is going to come up?
It's kind of strange, to be honest. I mean, it was a weird year for my first year in training, for sure. I've definitely seen the industry change a lot just within the year. I mean, with the coming of like virtual training and in-home training. I guess in terms of plans for the future, right now I'm at a stage where like I gotta have to do whatever I can to get by financially, but like I always want to incorporate training in no matter what I do. And in the long run, I want to form a community center that kind of like, you know, is incorporative of just like reacquainting people with movement and just like health overall. I think that's what I saw a lot too, is like, because before I was a trainer, I would like always be in the gym, you know, like 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day, but it's like I wasn't really being healthy. You know, I mean, I was smoking cigarettes, like eating terribly, like, but like I think as a trainer, putting health in the forefront of my mind is something that I want to kind of keep in who as I am, or even if I end up, you know, changing industries or like that, something is very important to me. And even over quarantine, I was actually doing a lot of just like free classes out and like doing free power with people, just kind of helping keep sanity, you know, everything going on. I think like something that I really resonate a lot with Mark Ribito says about like the psychological benefits of training is just like being able to do something that you never imagined yourself able to do before. I mean, it's extremely important. It's a principle I take with me. But in a long-winded way, I want to be able to give back to the community with it and be able to do training in my own way.
Cool. I mean, it's compared to how you were training earlier in your life, you know, for swimming and for going into college, how different is the change in terms of programming and mentality and like collegiate style of training versus, you know, actually sitting down and doing the research and, you know, programming for somebody?
1,000% different. I mean, like, as most high school kids are, like, I was an idiot when I was training. So, like, I would bench, like, 6 days a week and just be like, yeah, like, this will make me so fast. But I think, like, in terms of training and looking at specificity for your clients, the way I look at it is a lot like goal setting in general, right? It's like you kind of try to think of, like, what you're trying to attain and reverse engineer it in a sense, you know, like what are the controllable factors, what are the uncontrollable factors, what are the things that I can work on, what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths. Like, I think something that Keith has actually had a big impact in my life with was like before coming into Equinox, like, you know, I was always with the mentality of the same thing, like mind over matter. And I think there's definitely a value for that in athletes, but from a training perspective, it's like the idea of the minimal effective dose of training, right? It's like I wouldn't want to make my athlete do twice the amount of work to have the same result, right? So it's more about like making the time that we have together count so that when you go onto, you know, for example, your platform or rugby match, all the things, you're well conditioned for exactly what you're trying to do.
So Nick, where can the people find more information about you, what you do, and how to get in touch with you?
If you guys ever want to follow my Instagram, it's at premeditated movement. A work in progress, long ass name, I know, but you know, I think like,
is it premeditated movement?
Yeah, premeditated movement.
That's a mouthful, man.
I know, I'm working on it.
No, I like it though. I like it. I dig it.
Yeah, the idea of like, I guess just being like intention with your movement. You know, I mean,
yeah.
With the difference between training and exercise is something that I learned along the way. I think that's what I'm about. You know?
I dig it. Love it.
Cool.
Nice.
All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much for dropping in to the Trainer Feed, and thank you for sharing all of your insights when it comes to martial arts. Apparently, very good swimming, rugby, and fitness. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Nick. We really appreciate it.
What a thought.
Happy to be here, guys.
Thanks, Nick. Have a good one. Take care, man. See you soon.
Deuces.
Yeah. That was good.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a great episode.
He's a very chill guy. He's so, and also the thing that I probably failed to mention was he was actually one of the most receptive rampers that I've worked with. Whenever he's come to look for guidance or programming assistance, he's always been, and then also whenever we did like those program jams, those things at the 76th Street, like the workshops,
Yeah.
He was always the most respectful one. He was always like, I'm so like very. It was the first one to come up at the end and say like, "Oh, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. It really helped me." He was always like, it was people like him that really reaffirm like why you do what you do and why you love it. So I probably should have mentioned that as well, which I forgot to. But
No, yeah, it was definitely good to see him kind of like in the teacher role almost, right? Because like for so long, like he had been, and I think he did like a couple of program jams or something like that, or a couple of workshops. But for such a long time, I think he's also been a student. So it's kind of cool to see him being a teacher and like shedding some light in some areas that we don't have an expertise in.
For real.
Yeah. So the recording of this is 10/29. So this is before the election.
Right.
And this might be our last podcast before the election. I think the next podcast we'll have, it'll be after.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys wanted to say anything about that or just be like, nah.
Well, fucking vote.
Well, we'll probably be dropping this like sometime in November, but
we hope you
go vote for in 4 years from now.
Go vote again.
Go vote again.
Go back that line.
Voting.
Just go vote. Get ready for the next 4 years.
Yeah,
I've seen those lines though, man.
Yeah, I voted yesterday.
How long was the line?
I got there about an hour early, and I had to wait from that time 3 hours. I got out, or less than 3 hours.
Where was your poll station?
On 125th, right?
No, so they have a couple of different ones. I went to one on 102nd.
Oh, I heard that one is the longest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird.
I went through the projects and like out of the projects, then back in. It was weird because they had like at one point the end of the line and the end of the line on both points were kind of like shoulder to shoulder. So like some people just walked up to like the entrance and they were like, no. The beginning of the line is on the opposite side. Like you're facing the wrong way.
You're on the wrong avenue.
Exactly. Because they had like a handicap entrance and people just kind of like jumped to the handicap entrance. It was like,
just pretend the handicap.
Gotta go all the way back.
I'm thinking about doing it this weekend, or if not, just wait till Tuesday, because my polling site is right around the corner. But I read somewhere, like you look up where your early voting site is, and it came up for me 125th, and that was kind of weird.
So, yeah, because they only have they have like 80 poll sites, but if you go on election day, there's going to be like over 1,000. So it's going to be fine. I suggest you'll have to like, they'll give you a pen or something like that because you have to like write. I mean, you have to write on an iPad sort of deal. They just have you sign.
Oh.
And then that same thing is a pen that you use to actually fill in the boxes and whatnot.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Pretty good experience overall. It's a little bit rainy, but don't matter.
3 hours. What'd you do to kill the time?
I bought a couple of books with me, and
smart man.
I wrote some
How many
emails.
books you finished?
Huh?
We finished more than one.
For real?
No, I just bought 2 with me just in case because I'm towards the end on one, and then I bought another one. And then, but I was just like chilling. The people behind me were just uncomfortably close, but that was fine.
See any crazy stuff?
I'm trying to think because I always remember these stories like afterwards where I'm just like, oh yeah, that dude.
No, it was insane the past couple of days with those like Trump people in Midtown.
Oh God.
Yo, I saw this video and they were it was.
What were they doing?
The caption said, "Welcome to New York." It was, because the caravan, like, yeah, the caravan of Giuliani was in there. So these protesters were like, "Fuck you, Giuliani." Blah, blah, blah,
oh, did you see that Borat movie?
Throwing eggs. No, I didn't see the Borat movie yet.
I gotta watch it.
All right.
But it was crazy. People were like ripping flags out of their cars. The Blue Lives Matter flags, the Trump Pence flags, and then you had fights, and it was a whole thing. It was.
Did you go on?
No, I'm just saying, like, I think you gotta respect people both ways. You know what I mean? Just like, you can protest for Black Lives Matter. If somebody's going to drive in a caravan supporting a Trump flag, you have to respect that as well. I'm not saying like it's good or it's bad, but respect goes both ways, period.
Right.
I had this argument with my
rip
dad.
Stuff out of people's hands and then expect things to go well.
Yeah. I mean, when I was having this sort of like talk with my dad, it was more of like, well, in my opinion, a lot of people that come into New York out of all places to support, let's say Donald Trump, you know what that comes with. Like, you know what's going to happen, right? But at the end of the day, everybody has the right to believe and support whoever they
Yeah,
want.
man, I don't want to go to
But-
Florida, walking around Florida and then get smacked in the face because somebody said.
But that's the thing. But if
But
you
that's
do it
a-
on
that's what-
purpose,
Uh,
like if you
But-
purposely go to Florida,
I mean, I'm
you
not
know,
doing it.
That's the thing. All decked out in Biden gear
I'm not doing it.
to incite some sort of like response. Come on,
That's what I was about to say. Is like I'm not. And I know Angel, you made a good point of saying like we don't promote to have any ill behavior or feelings towards anyone. I know like your opinions are opinions or whatever, but that David raised a good point that like if you go to a red state and you're wearing you're decked out in Biden, it's not going to be very well received either. But then it I don't know. I mean, all I'll say is that this, if anyone listening, it's not a dig at anyone obviously, but like I've never realized how I never was so aware of people's political agendas up until this election before. I don't know if I wasn't aware of it, if I was so naive before, but like it's just a little surprising to see some people that I wasn't aware of who they root for, who they voted for. So it's an eye-opening experience. Again, no right or wrong, just I wasn't aware, so it was kind of interesting.
I was thinking yeah, go ahead.
on. No, go on.
No, I was just gonna say like with that said, like I have learned a lot over this past election, including like things that I could do that aren't necessarily as simple as voting, right? Like so donating to certain programs, certain organizations, as well as volunteering, all that stuff adds up. And even if you can't vote, like some people just can't vote, whether you're from a different country or, you have like a criminal background or something like that, like there are other avenues to kind of like help with the whole process. So it's been interesting for me because I've never really thought about it and I never really had to find resources for people until this election where I was just like trying to figure out, okay, so this is your situation. Here are a couple of ways that you can help. So it has been eye-opening in that regard too.
The other thing I was going to say was Sunday Night Football. If you guys are listening, obviously this is a little weeks before, but the Cardinals and the Seahawks played. Did you guys see any of that game?
No.
Nah.
No worries. So, but DeAndre Hopkins got traded there in the summer. Did you guys hear about this thing on Sunday?
Mm-mm.
On his way to the game, he was driving on the highway. He was going to the game, and like there were Trump supporters in vans, but apparently they're very like diehard Trump supporters and Cardinals fans. And apparently he was just like flipping them off the whole way to the highway. There was like a dozen cars, and then all these Cardinals fans are like mad that he was just flipping them off. Yeah, so that happened Sunday.
I don't know, man. Like at the end of the day, you also got to figure out how you're going to continue to live your life because this election is going to end one way or another, and people aren't going to be happy, right? It doesn't really matter.
Exactly. You can't.
It doesn't really matter which side. Like just because it favors you doesn't mean like it's better. I mean, I guess objectively you can say one thing is better. Well, no, actually, it depends what you value.
Right.
Like if you value like the planet Earth and its resources.
Science.
Well, no, I'm saying like, you can also just say, screw it. I don't really care because I'm going to be dead in 100 years. And who am I to say if that's better or worse, right? Like, I don't know. But anyway, interesting stuff. We're going to have to figure out how to live with each other for the next couple of years. And one way or another is going to be over. So curious to see where it's going to be. Maybe I'll hear this episode and laugh. Or maybe we'll hear this episode and cry.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. All right. Let's wrap it up. Thanks, guys, for checking out the trainer feed. Please subscribe, like, all that stuff. 5 stars, everything. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.